Usually, these videos are somewhat lighthearted and only involve in-game characters, but not this one, as in this video, we will be detailing the heroic rise of Forager and its catastrophic downfall, from the developer's escape from poverty to the underpaid employees that were abused while working on the game. Welcome to the dark side of Forager. To this date, Forager has sold over 1 million copies. However, it wasn't always like this for Mariano, as growing up in Argentina trying to make it as a game developer wasn't easy. In his own words, it's not an uncommon dream anymore, but from where I'm from, Argentina, opportunities to do this just didn't exist when I was younger. Nobody was making video games for a living. Now, despite this obstacle, Mariano kept up with his dream, even going as far as to drop out of college and pursue his career as a full-time game developer. I had about 5,000 in savings, mostly inherited from my dad after he passed a couple of years earlier, and that's all the money I would use for a good while. My mum did come to the rescue during the darkest times, but more on that later. After he dropped out of college, Mariano started reading books and practicing tools such as Game Maker for 12 to 14 hours a day. And a year and a half later, he had amassed a grand total of 12 to 14 games under his belt. In his own words, they were all pretty bad, but I learned a lot from doing this. I was starting to build up a portfolio. However, this is where Mariano's money problems started to kick in. I tried finishing overscoped game ideas that failed miserably. I tried finding contract work that also failed miserably. Half of my money was gone, and I had decided to invest the other half for making crappy HTML5 type of games to sell to web portals around the globe. This too failed miserably. I made about 300 from these total to this day. But that was all about to change, as one day, Mariano was playing Risk of Rain with his cousin when he realized that the UI was kind of not too good. It was a little bit janky and annoying to use. And so, he had a very bright idea, that idea being to make his own version of Risk of Rain. With a twist, of course. I told my cousin, come visit me again in 2 weeks and I'll have a game for us to play together. That was it. I just wanted to take a small little game he and I could play together. This game, although fun, still didn't solve Mariano's money problems at the time. My friends were working half the hours that I was and making a good income. At this point, I was out of money and I had to call my mum to come rescue me. Yep, proper businessman like. I know, she was a total angel. Didn't understand at all what I was doing and still supported me even though she was very uncomfortable with my choice of dropping out of school. Did I just say dropping out of school? I worked super hard for 2 weeks and created this game called Impossible Dungeons. It was an arcade-like tower defense plus platformer hybrid. You were supposed to form a raiding team with your buddies and venture into one of the several impossible to defeat dungeons. During the course of the dungeon raid, you and your team had to defend by placing down defenses and upgrading characters with Risk of Rain-like item effects. I was, and still am, super proud of it. My cousin loved it, we played it for hours. But despite the clear enjoyment Mariano faced while playing the game, it still wasn't his main project. Yet. My main project at the time was called I'm gonna have to fucking look up how to say this. Cinco Dea. Okay, apparently you say it Cinco Dea. Or something like that. My main project at the time was a game called Cinco Dea that I had been working on full-time during the past year. In the game, you controlled a cute character and a super sharp blade, and you had to colonize planets by jumping on them, while also defending your character with the blade from enemies approaching you. That sounds like a clusterfuck of an idea, jeez. It was a messy and poorly executed idea, there you go. A game that nobody was really asking for, to be honest. I spent most of my remaining money in the trailer. On the trailer. I submitted it to Steam Greenlight and people hated it. I was devastated. I had used almost all of my resources to make something awful and unfun. In shame, I took it down from my platform. My dreams of becoming a professional game developer were starting to fade out and depression was an everyday thing at this point. But this is when EVO 2016 comes around to play. I was about to give up when a friend told me about this conference in Buenos Aires, I think that's how you say it, capital of Argentina, called EVO. Now, I'm not even gonna try and pronounce this, but EVO basically just stands for Argentine Video Game Showcase. Buenos Aires was far from where I lived at the time, and my social anxiety was tearing me apart, just by thinking of being in the same crowded room with people. Talking about personal work in front of hundreds of attendees too. I decided to go for it, my last shot. I literally had no money after buying the bus ticket. I stayed at my brother's place, who was attending college in Buenos Aires. Dude, if I've been saying the name of the city wrong this whole time, I'm gonna get 1,000 angry comments in Spanish, but I won't be able to read them, so it's fine. I needed to choose a game to submit for the showcase, and at this point, I hated Cinque Dea, and my other projects weren't as polished or / complete, so I didn't know what to do. A cousin suggested sending in Impossible Dungeons. He eventually talked me into it, but it wasn't all smooth sailing from here on out for Mariano. I barely remember anything. I was so nervous. I tried to fake confidence, but I was stressed out of my mind. I ran to the bathroom to throw up because of anxiety at least twice that I can remember. Jeez. I even forgot to eat during the weekend of the showcase. But people really seemed to love my game. Crowds were forming to play or to watch others play. Kids loved it. Their parents would ask me if they could buy the game for them, and this would warm my poor little heart. However, I didn't want to sell unfinished products, so I just gave the game away for free to whoever asked. I know, I'm a great businessman. Don't mention it. Yeah, if I was fucking dead broke and there were people asking to give me money for something I've made, I would just take the offer. Come on, man. Like, come on. But then, at the end of day 2, I was so exhausted that I couldn't even stand on my feet anymore. I was sitting on the floor against the wall, drenched in sweat, when this organizer comes to me and asks me to follow him. I honestly thought he was kicking me out of the venue. He led me through a giant wooden door to the back of a conference stage. It was dark. I was shaking. I walked through the curtains. It was the award ceremony. They were giving away prizes for the top games at the showcase. And they gave me one too? Me? Can you believe it? I thought they had it wrong. I thought it was a mistake. You can see in the video of the conference that I was so confused I actually didn't grab the check. The guy literally had to tell me, take it, this is yours. Now, 2 things. I tried to find the video, couldn't. I looked all over the internet. I couldn't find it, so unlucky. But 2, the guy in the picture, so Mariano, he's in the picture right here. Red arrow on the screen somewhere. I'm sorry, but he looks like Ryan the Leader. on YouTube. But you can't tell me these 2 people do not look similar to you. Anyway, apparently people voted for Impossible Dungeons as the best game in the showcase. I won a trip for the conference to the USA valued at $1,000. I couldn't believe it. Before I knew it, I was giving interviews and networking with my idols in the local scene. Everyone was congratulating me, but I was just a zombie going through the motions. I would later find out that Impossible Dungeons won over a huge difference, almost 10 to 1. This blew my mind. Now, at this point, Mariano had won a $1,000 trip to the USA, but where would this actually lead him in the scheme of things? Well, a week passed, I needed money. I moved back in with my mom. I would end up staying with her for about 6 months. In December, I took part in a game jam organized by Yo-Yo Games, in which we had to make a game in just 2 weeks. Inspired by the success of Impossible Dungeons, I made a very addicting crafting game called Forager, and it won 2nd place at the jam. I didn't know how to feel at all. On one hand, I was being recognized and congratulated, but on the other, I was broke with seemingly no business opportunities. I didn't have enough money to finish and ship any of my games at all. I needed to take a chance. And so, Mariano used the trip that he won to fly to America. However, nothing was working at this new game jam, and this was all while Mariano was trying to deal with his crippling anxiety. But then, that's when Mariano's life changed forever. The guy next to me on the showcase floor felt bad for me and came to play my games for a while. He was actually supposed to have a meeting but lost track of time because he was playing Forager. This apparently happens when you're playing the game a lot. The person he was supposed to meet came looking for him and he apologized and said, "It's the game's fault, it's super addictive." What a nice guy, honestly. We are still friends today. But anyway, they had their meeting and then the executive/biz dev guy turned to me. He was from Humble Freaking Bundle, the company that has raised $100 million for charity by selling games at a pay-what-you-want model. He asked about my projects and I showed him Impossible Dungeons. He thought it was cool, but didn't look very interested. I would later come to find out that they had already signed a platformer plus tower defense game. I was late to the party on that one. I was devastated. Then, he saw on my laptop the icon for Forager and inquired if that was the addicting game that the other guy was playing. It was indeed Forager, the game about gathering/managing resources and building sprawling bases. It had only 2 weeks worth of work. It's basically Zelda plus Stardew Valley. I told him about it for what seemed like an hour, and he seemed to really like it. Long story short, over the next 2 months, I can honestly say, without exaggerating, that this was the best news of all time since ever. And after the success of the demo for Forager, a couple years later, Forager would release to a successful launch. In its first month, it averaged 13,000 players on Steam, and in its first year, it would go on to sell 600,000 copies on Steam. And with that, Mariano went from a broke college kid with $0 or Argentinian pesos to his name to a game that had sold 6,000 copies of its own. And so, Mariano had finally had his big breakthrough and found success in the gaming industry. Success that would continue to follow him for years to come. Or had he? On the 3rd of May 2019, 15 days after the release of Forager, Mariano released a roadmap for the foreseeable future of Forager updates. Now at first it seems pretty cool and reasonable. An update for quality of life changes, an update for combat, an update for modding support, and an update for multiplayer, a promised and advertised feature of the game. However, what wasn't foreseeable for Mariano at this point was the mess that was soon to occur. Cause sure, the appreciation update did release, albeit a month late, and the combat update released a month after summer finished, but what about the modding update? Did that ever come out? Well, kind of, because on the 16th of January 2022, the nuclear update was released. Now this update introduced a bunch of bosses, quality of life changes, heaps of endgame content, and mod support via the Steam Workshop. So yeah, I guess in the end, Forager got its mod support update and even more than it bargained for, which was honestly deserved because the update was 2 months late this time. However, what about the multiplayer update? Surely with it being the only update left and Hopfrog being continuously late on his update schedule, the multiplayer update was right around the corner. Right? Well, no, you can actually be more wrong here. As of December of 2023, the multiplayer update for Forager is still not out. But what happened? Well, let's just say that at this point, it was the end for Mariano and Forager 2. On the 6th of April 2021, the multiplayer update for Forager was officially cancelled. This was publicly announced by Mariano on his public Patreon, and for context's sake, I'll be reading the entire thing, as the context of the situation will soon be important. Forager's multiplayer update has been cancelled. Hey Foragers, I am very disappointed to announce that the multiplayer update for Forager is now officially cancelled. As part of my commitment to open communication and transparency, I will explain to you why I had to make this hard decision and everything that transpired up to this point. But if you're short on time, here's the TLDR. Forager's multiplayer update is now cancelled. There'll be refunds for people that got into the game just to play multiplayer. More on that later, not on this part, but in a part later. More content for Forager is still a possibility, and the game/series won't be abandoned. Top 10 lies of all time. He puts that ghost image, and then, as many of you have noticed, the quality of the multiplayer beta was really low. The update was a year late, crashes would happen all the time, most features weren't working, and some people wouldn't even be able to start the game at all. I personally haven't been working on Forager since the appreciation update, and to be honest, it really shows. All the updates we had after that, except maybe the combat update, were very poorly made. The balance got out of whack, everything became boringly grindy, enemies became annoying to deal with, mods would break the game and introduced a whole host of new bugs, Mac and Linux versions got worse, completely ruined, etc. The combat update was okay, but not without some weird issues, in brackets, UI reworks looked terrible with the void out being very disappointing, animation quality went down, grinding got worse, etc. Wait, hold on, why are you talking shit about this update? Didn't you just say it was like the only good update in... Never mind. For multiplayer in particular, the entire process got me really sad and disappointed. I am not a good programmer, remember that's going to be really important later. I am not a good programmer, so I stepped back and let other individuals work on Forager for almost 2 years after it was released, but it quickly became clear that fixing this mess needed my urgent attention. After the first week of the beta, I looked into finding a new team of programmers to fix this buggy mess, but no professional wanted to take on the project due to how poorly coded and bloated it became since the game released in 2019. Okay, so future Amos here. Basically, I was about to call Mariano out, as right there he has just stated that the code of Forager is a poorly coded mess. However, this is his fault because he just said he's not a very good programmer, and like, he is the one who coded the game. However, this isn't exactly what he said here, and the reason why I overlooked this is because I have some future knowledge that like overrides everything here. However, I just realized he's done something even sneakier here. Basically, he's saying that after 2019, when he hired his team, that's when the game got all sloppily coded, which is actually not true. The game was a fucking mess from the start, which I'll talk about later, and also the original code, which was messy from the start, was written by 2 people, one of those people being him. So yeah. Instead of just being a complete dumbass and exposing himself as an idiot, he's actually done something slightly sneakier and said that, oh no, I didn't fuck up the code, even though I did. Someone else did that after I hired them. He's trying to shift the narrative to something that it's just completely not. Not a good look. Multiple teams and individuals have offered to remake the game / update from scratch, but that would entail at least 2 to 3 years of development before it's playable. I don't know. I'm a gamer first and a dev second. And to me, that sounds like a lazy cash grab. So you're telling me that fixing the game and giving an update that you promised from the start, like a major component of the game, you're saying that giving that to the person that paid for your product is a lazy cash grab, but making Forager 2 wouldn't be? What the fuck? Why not take 2 to 3 years to make Forager 2, with new lands, items, and content and multiplayer working from the ground up in that case? Why take so long to remake something that already exists when you could just take that time to make something more expanded and exciting instead? It's incredible how many devs just want to make a quick buck. Okay, this really pissed me off when I read it, because it's like, alright, there's this game you already have that you've promised this major update, which is multiplayer, this big feature of the game, you've promised it. Now, after you've cancelled it and said it's not coming because of you, basically, because you messed up, you went, oh, well, instead of putting it in the product that people have already paid for, that I already promised it would be in it, let's make another product, make them buy that one, that second product, and then put the actual working thing in that product. Like, what the fuck do you mean lazy cash grab? Making a second game would be more of a lazy cash grab than like implementing it into the game that already exists. Now, I understand where he's coming from. I don't think that Forager 2 would be entirely a lazy cash grab, but by definition, it's more of a lazy cash grab than putting it into the game that already exists that you already promised it would be in. But yeah, developers making a quick buck. So yeah, the multiplayer functionality is unfixable, and I don't want to release a half-assed cash grab update. So I've decided that the right thing to do is stop making the fans wait and cancel the update and offer the refunds. Info and refunds. So then I'm not going to read this. You can read it right here, but it's just he links all the refunds for Steam, Patreon, etc. And he tells you, yeah, for Steam, Patreon, GOG, Humble Bundle, and Console, and he tells you how to get it refunded. Now, I just want to say something about refunds. Basically, from all the stuff he's listed, he's just given you a direct help support link to whatever you got it from. So basically, if you got the game from Steam, he's just giving you the link to get it refunded on Steam. However, on Steam, you can only get it refunded if you spent less than 2 hours playing the game and you have only gotten it 2 weeks ago. I'm pretty sure that's the exact numbers. If it's not, I'll put it up on the screen. But each thing he's given has similar things, like a similar time frame of either a week to, I think the max one of one of these sites was 60 days. Now remember, this is 2021 and the game came out in 2019. So if you've had the game since the start, or even a year ago, or even half a year ago, because you went, oh, multiplayer, that sounds really cool, I want to get that, it's promised, let's buy it, and then my friend can buy it, and then when it comes out, we can play it. Well, guess what? You just got fucking scammed, because all the info refunds he gives you, you can't even refund it unless you've spent minuscule amount of your time on the game and you got the game for either like 2 weeks to 60 days ago, depending on which store you got it from. And let's be honest, most people got it from Steam, which is only 2 weeks. So now, again, at this point, I don't think Mariano is actually a scammer. I think he did just try and redirect people to refund the game if you want. And if you did get the game within this like 2 week to a couple month period, then you can refund it. And he's offering this as a thing because he has like failed on his promise. However, the problem that I'm pointing out here is that majority of the people that have bought the game probably can't even refund it. So right now it kind of just looks like he's putting up these refunds to save his ass, but the only people that can really refund it are the Patreon people, because for you to refund it through Patreon, you have to like directly message us and he'll do it. So yeah, as I just mentioned, there's a couple inconsistencies in this. However, with statements such as, I personally haven't been working on the Forager update since the appreciation update, and to be honest, it really shows. And all the updates we have after that, except maybe the combat update, were made very poorly, among many others. Mariano seems to pin the blame on the dev team and not himself, despite him being the leader of the team. And after being thrown under the bus to save Mariano's ass, the rest of Forager's team weren't going to let it slide. On the 12th of April 2021, Yellow Afterlife, one of the lead developers and probably longest running programmer of Forager, wrote a post on his blog called Forager in Retrospect, which I will now read in entirety again for context's sake. Forager in Retrospect. In light of recent events, original wording on the archive, of the game's multiplayer update being cancelled and overall uncertainty about the game's future, I look back at the game, the announcement, and how did this even happen? For legal reasons, this post only relies on publicly available information. Blame. If you've already read the linked post, you might have noticed that it starts off with gracefully throwing the entire development team under the bus on premise that the situation was out of control, despite of, being in charge. Let's take a look at that for a bit. Quality. Peculiarly, I'm having a stroke trying to read this word. Peculiarly, these two statements are a paragraph apart in the post. I personally haven't been working on Forager since the appreciation update, and to be honest, it really shows. All the updates that we had after that, except maybe the combat update, were all very poorly made. I'm not a good programmer, so I step back and let other individuals work on Forager. Again, yeah, when I come to these quotes, I might just read them a lot quicker so that we can get to the because I already just read them like a fucking segment ago, so yeah. Gabe, Lazy Eye, was originally hired specifically to help with the game's bugs and performance struggles and many of the early development decisions which would haunt it for years to come. So it's hard to tell what the implication was supposed to be here. Realistically, the game should have been seen a substantial rewrite shortly before or after an initial release, as game development is not, in fact, a game of reverse Jenga, and you cannot keep just piling features without maintenance until your game collapses under its own weight. Grind and balance. Hopfrog, so Mariano, has previously said that he's handling the game design, so I cannot tell whose fault it's supposed to be here. That's pretty true, actually. Art. Similarly, concerns about art would seem like something that could have been rectified sooner than after a few years. Though also, if the original art style was preferred, perhaps it would have been better not to cut ties with Gazetteer. So I'm butchering your name probably. Who did majority of the game's artwork up until the public release. Now this is true. We'll be going over this later though. Modding. The post does not miss an opportunity to take a jab at the game's modding support. Mods would break the game and introduce a host of new bugs. Ultimately, modding functionality never got the developer attention that it needed, but the overall mindset of letting players do whatever they want, even use things like networking functions, had cost the game some stability since, yes, people will use whatever you give them and break the game. Team effort. He shows this graph on screen. You can see yellow afterlife at the bottom. Second one. A thing that set Forager apart of basically any other game of its scale was how few people worked on the programming parts of it, despite the ever-growing scope and issues. Evan Hemsley was the game's first hired programmer, since similarly, in contrast to most other games, Hopfrog would never announce arrival/departures of team members. It is not known when exactly Evan started working on the game, but it is likely pre-2019. Evan did additional programming and initial console ports, a rather thankless job, considering that the game was still in development and was undergoing optimization passes around the same time. We can only assure that there had been some sort of disagreement between Evan and Hopfrog, since Evan stopped working on the game mid-2019 and was later removed from the credits. Gabe/Lazy Eye was the second programmer to be hired. Similarly, the exact date Gabe started working on the game is not known, but it had been sometime in early January 2019. Gabe was initially helping with organization and bug fixes and was promoted to lead programmer role after Hopfrog stepped away from programming. Gabe moved on to work on other projects in spring 2020. I was the third programmer to be hired. I wrote the scripting language that was used for the game's modding system and the backend that was used for the game's multiplayer. Also, assisting and debugging anything related to the two and occasionally helping with optimization. It was a great time. Watching people use the available tools in new and unexpected ways is perhaps my favorite thing about working on modding systems. My involvement ended abruptly in August to September of 2020. Noman was the last programmer to be hired. This is the only hire that has an actual date since it was posted on Noman's personal Twitter. Noman was originally working as an assistant programmer aiding with modding support and bug fixes, and was implicitly promoted to lead programmer after Gabe's departure. According to player observations on the game's official Discord server, Noman suddenly lost the developer roles on Discord on March 1 amid what seemed to be a regular batch of bug fixes. Removed mentions of Forager from the Twitter bio the next day, and by March 29 has found a new job at Innersloth. All in all, although the game was, by all means, on its last leg for a good half of a year, Hopfrog did not hire any new programmers to assist with delivering the multiplayer update faster or increasing the game's stability to a viable port. In comparison, Both rivals of Aether and Vertigo have a total of 7 members involved with programming in some way, either actively or being available to step in if something goes wrong. The gaps. Yeah, this is a long segment. Although the announcement explains the reasoning to a degree, some gaps remain in the story. In the announcement, Hopfrog said that he made a decision to cancel the update due to low quality and after investigating the options. When answering questions on Discord, he instead said, there's a screen cap for this, that everyone quit. We can confidently say that the latter wouldn't be entirely true given my case, but it is also unclear whether Nomen was aware of their impending departure, as the last batch of bug fixes would never make it to the players. If everyone did quit, it is unclear why Hopfrog did not ask Bitworks, industry professionals that did the game's mobile ports, or me for having worked on the game's code/netcode earlier to help with the last order of the code base. Now, I don't remember if he says this in the post, but yeah, Yellow Afterlife has worked on like many games and stuff, and like would be way more than qualified to help with this specific thing. It is unclear why the announcement had only been posted on Discord and Patreon, given that it had not been posted to Steam nor Twitter. Many players wouldn't even know that the multiplayer update had been cancelled until they had to specifically search for info, perhaps maybe weeks or months later. Given the NDA-driven nature of the industry, it's hard to tell what really happened and why. Salvaging. As someone with an entire career, okay, he's mentioning here, revolving around fixing and retrofitting years-old code bases to do things that were never expected to do, I strongly believe that it's rare for a game to be truly unsalvageable. Yes, it may set the development back a few months, but such things happen when you ignore an issue until it gets that bad. The concept of a partial or complete rewrite of the game in some or different engine, while the original codebase receives minor updates, also isn't new, allowing to maintain momentum and not lose active players in the process. But, of course, it is also a matter of short-term/long-term planning. The future. What and how can be done with the game is an interesting question given the circumstances. Some things are easy to fix. For example, the game not opening URLs right can be fixed with an extension I made last year, and game running at under or over 60 FPS/Hz screens can be fixed with another extension. Yeah, that's okay. That's a random bug in this game where if you load into the game with 60 Hz, so a monitor that's higher or lower than 60 Hz, it just can break. Now, luckily, I have a 144 Hz monitor and it didn't break while playing this game. It just, I guess, locked at 60 FPS, but it commonly can break. So yeah, that sucks. Some things aren't. For example, any issues related to save file corruption or modding support are going to be harder to fix after cutting ties with everyone that knew how the code works. Some things are particularly tricky. For example, to keep the console versions up to date, the game will soon need to move to a newer game maker version, which is a massive task to undertake. Well, as for multiplayer, well, that's it. If the work started from a local multiplayer, the game could still be played over internet using Parsec, remote play together, or a tool I made. But it was not, so it cannot be. And at most, someone might take a slightly more advanced version of, what the fuck is that name? Tuberculosis? Pen pal mod. Quite unfortunately, none of this is my personal subject of worry. He basically just said, I don't give no fucks. Okay, I just realized that the rest of this post there's no point reading it because it's just, this is purely for other game developers. Although it's up on screen right now if you want to pause and read it if that really interests you, and I will just read the conclusion right now because that's still important. Big tragedies often come from a series of small issues that were neglected for long enough. And it is really unfortunate to see the game end up like this. As to whether anyone had learned anything from this, time will show. There's also a line underneath that is crossed out that says, for now, the game's audience seems accepting enough and even enthusiastic about potential future games from the developer. I think we can aspire to have fans this loyal. However, it's crossed up and he says, hold up, because on the 13th of April, so the day after this was posted, something really big happened. Well, something really small happened that caused a massive chain reaction. And this is why, to me, April 13th is the day that Forager died. As on the 13th of April 2021, Yellow Afterlife edited this original post that we just saw to include another part, so we'll read that right now. I've originally tried to maintain a neutral point of view in this post on assumption of good faith, but discussion on Twitter has revealed even more issues. The reason why there's seemingly little discourse around multiplayer update on Steam discussions is that anyone mentioning the announcement in bad lights get banned, except for a few select users. Mentioning this post will also get you banned. Complaints about posts being removed go back to April 5th, which is the day that he announced the multiplayer update being cancelled. And underneath this is a Twitter screenshot of Yellow Afterlife showing that he got permanently banned from the Forager Steam hub for breaking COC, and the reason why he got banned is because he gave a link to this forum post. He then goes on to explain that, edit, according to developers' code of conduct, complaining about anything is a bannable offense, which is vague enough to leave a lot of it up to moderators, resulting in some complaints, 2, about moderators playing favorites or acting unpredictably. It is hard to verify these allegations since no order information was being published, and neither about notes about moderator arrivals/departures. Hopfrog has cut off all forms of contact except for email, unclear whether non-refund emails are currently being answered. Steam, where voicing your concerns about you gets banned, yes, as Yellow Afterlife where you got banned. Discord, where you are either banned or your concerns are quietly ignored while answering other questions with screen caps. Gatsia, however you say it, the game's original artist, was reportedly faced with a choice of leaving or working on the game for a little bit above minimum wage after the public release. Despite the game already selling thousands of copies and was generating a stable revenue stream via Patreon. And the official statement is right here. As the main artist who worked on Forager from the start up until release, I also had a very bad experience with the main developer. After the release, when the game was already a success, I was offered to keep working on it for under minimum wage. I left right away. And I heard other stories too from every person who's worked with him. If you want to understand more, you can read Vadium's post, and Vadium is just Yellow Afterlife. For now, I've deleted the worked on Forager from my bio, and I no longer want to be associated with it. Correction, checking back, it was just a little bit above minimum wage. I think originally it said minimum wage, but then they corrected it to a little bit above minimum wage. I was told that since you're not a founder, and I quote, the success of the game will probably never matter for your salary. And that's after he commissioned me for around 2 years for most of the game's art. Now, this is interesting because, yes, of course, as they just said, their Twitter has been wiped of any trace of Forager, so I popped them back into the Wayback Machine, had a look, and yes, we can confirm without a doubt that this is the main artist that has been working on Forager way before its release. As they said, at least around 2 years. So according to Mariano, someone that's worked on all of the art of his game for around 2 years before release was not an original founder and deserved to be paid a little above minimum wage. Not a good look. But the poor treatment did not stop on collaborators either. Shy, one of the early community moderators, reported having been booted from Discord for mental issues after she openly came out as trans. So here's the official statement. We'll be honest, it was a shame for all the other devs that were at one point involved with the project, and I feel bad for the fact that the main dev threw them under the bus, but to me, this was nothing but unexpected after the way I was thrown out as a moderator and how I was treated. And then another person, yeah, I lost my respect I had for Hop after he let his mods just abuse their power and then kick me out of the Discord for bringing the fact up. And then Shy responds, well, you got kicked out for that? I heard many stories about people getting kicked out for that. I got unmodded and kicked because of mental issues not long after I came out as openly trans. It seems increasingly more apparent that whatever this is had been going on for years, and the game had only miraculously survived this long thanks to the kindness and patience of collaborators. The same people that are now being blamed for all of it. Okay, now I can't just drop that bombshell and not say anything about it. Basically, there's this thing called correlation and causation. Now, I'm not in Mariano's head. I have no clue, or the people that unmodded it, I am not in their head, so I have no clue which one it would be. Like, for all I know, the person that got unmodded could have done something else around that time that they came out as trans. But the thing is, I don't know. I have no clue. So, correlation, causation, I have no clue. I'm just going to leave that out there that it could be either, because I don't know the full context personally. But at the very least, it looks very sus. But then, when you thought it couldn't get any crazier, on the same day, so after all of this stuff comes out, Hopfrog apologizes. And he does this by editing his original Patreon post. So yes, this edited Patreon post starts off with this big edit at the top. I realized when I originally made this post that I made it sound like it was my team's fault that the update didn't come to fruition, or that the quality of the game had dropped in some areas over the years. I recognized that I was just being emotional and lashing out, and the truth is that this was only my fault. Everyone that has ever worked on Forager has been very nice, supportive, and hardworking. I have always had tons of respect for them, and I wish them the best of luck on their endeavors. If things didn't work out, it's only because I personally failed to lead them. Truth is, I'm not a leader / manager / boss guy. I just like making small games of my own. So please, don't blame the fine folks that have worked on Forager over these years. This is exclusively my own fault, and I am proud to own up to it. Yeah, so proud that you didn't own up to it until everything came crashing down on you. And then in the same post, he goes on to remove this whole big section on the screen right now that's circled, and he turned it into this. This entire process got me really sad and disappointed. I'm not a good programmer, so I stepped back and let other individuals work on Forager for almost 2 years after release, but it quickly became clear that fixing this mess needed my urgent attention. So basically, he put the big edit paragraph, I'm so sorry, blah blah blah, at the start, and then the big paragraph where he throws everyone under the bus, he just completely cut out and just said, there was just a mess. Instead of saying, this was the mess of someone else, this is their fault, he just said, there is a mess. He isn't really owning up to it. Now, also because this is on his Patreon, everyone in his comments is just sucking his dick, and it really pisses me off. Like, I don't blame you. I just want to say that as a game developer, I completely understand your decision. This is unfortunate, but I understand. Like, shut the fuck up, bro. Like, what is your problem? This incompetent fool failed to lead his team, and then after everything goes wrong because he failed to lead these people and he couldn't keep a promise that he promised, he throws everyone under the bus despite it being his fault that the code was complete shit at the start. And all of this, while multiple people of his community and developers and all this shit are just getting treated like shit. And you guys have the audacity to say, oh, that's okay, I completely understand. Like, some people, man. Oh yeah, except this one comment that says, can I get unbanned from the Discord, please? But this isn't over yet, because on the 14th of April, so the next day, there was another edit to Yellow Afterlife's post. Although the volume of replies to my Twitter thread remains quite high, to the point that it's hard to respond to everyone, people have been also pointing out new things that are publicly known but not covered here. Hopfrog updated the Patreon announcement to reiterate that he takes the responsibility for the game's failure and softened some of the wording, which is what we just read. Some of the developers are credited, but not quite right. Example, Trofer is only credited for sound design, although he's also done all kinds of other odd jobs, from building the game's API documentation site to official mods and tutorials for making them, to even filling out cards in the game's Trello. This is consistent with my experience being that you would only be credited if you pestered Hopfrog about it over a period of time. Although the announcement of the multiplayer update cancellation was not posted on Steam as of yet, October edit and likely never will be, related announcements, Forager multiplayer preview, Forager is 40% off in preparation for multiplayer, have been quietly removed. In what can be considered comedy gold, Hopfrog was originally going to give us a talk, as an archive, at GDC 2020 about constructing a big hit Forager as a solo dev, which I believe has never happened due to COVID-19, which this refers to this tweet by Simon Careless that says, another new indie summit talk for Hopfrog on constructing a big hit Forager as a solo dev. Yeah, you're really a great solo dev, aren't you, Mariano? And then on April 15th, so the day after this, Yellow Afterlife makes one last edit on this post that says, edit 2. As far as I can tell, as of April 15, posts are no longer being removed, perhaps as this damage control strategy has proven ineffective. So yeah, that was a lot of information here, but if you're confused or anything on the timeline, here it is. Basically, on April 6th, the multiplayer update was officially cancelled by Mariano on his Patreon. And then 6 days later, on the 12th, Yellow Afterlife posts his original post. But then on the 13th, he gets banned for linking that post to the Steam Forager group hub thing. And after he gets banned, he just lets everything loose and starts the edits, and that's where all the artists talking about getting paid minimum wage and the mod getting banned after they came out as openly trans. That's where all that comes from. And then later that day, on the 13th, after all of this hits the fan, Mariano finally edits his Patreon post, adds a big edit that says it's basically an apology, and then softens some of the wording. And then on the 14th, Yellow Afterlife edits the post again and gives more context of what's happening. Then on the 15th, Yellow Afterlife gives his final edit, which is the one we just went over, saying that people were no longer getting banned for talking about the multiplayer update getting cancelled. So at this point, shit has really hit the fan for Mariano, and everything he's been working for the last couple years has just collapsed under him. However, where would this bring Mariano? How would this really affect him in the long term? One of the biggest consequences for this whole ordeal for Forager is actually the community, or lack thereof, on YouTube. Now, the reason why I started making this video is I noticed that lots of people knew about Forager. Like every DF video, and there's like 20 of them, has like 1 to 2 to 3 million views on them. Like there's an insane number of views on them. However, the game sales don't really reflect this. As you can see, there's a big spike at the start when the game released, that's normal. And then there's just been a fall off, and for the last couple years, it's just been getting less and less and kind of stagnating. Which doesn't make sense, because usually games like Stardew Valley, Terraria, fucking anything around this same kind of genre-ish thing, usually what happens is you have a big spike when the game's released, and it goes to a certain point, and it goes a little bit more, like it slowly goes up until whatever, like a next update or a big sale or whatever. And over time, through this graph going up very incrementally, your new line of like stagnant growth will be much higher than it was before. This happens in every walk of life, not just games. I can show you with my channel, it's the same thing. However, Forager's graph looks like this. It just doesn't make any sense. I'm like, why is the game kind of dead, but every time someone makes a video on it, like it gets a lot of views? And I investigated further and I realized on YouTube, there is no Forager YouTuber. The closest that would be is like DF, because he's made a lot of videos on it, but still, he's only made like videos of him just kind of goofing around, no guides or anything. And he's only made like, I don't know, 20 or 30 videos or something. Like, you know what I mean by Forager YouTuber? Like Stardew Valley has them, Terraria has them. These kind of people make guides, help the community out, make cool fun challenges, and just play the game and have a good time. However, in Forager, every time I had to look up something, say a puzzle or whatever, I would realize that the person's channel that had the guide, yes, my camera just died, that's why my hair's dried already, but the channel would only have like 1,000 or 2,000 subscribers. And when I would go onto that channel, there would only be like 2 Forager videos, and the rest were either random crap or nothing. And this happened every single time I looked up something for Forager. So yeah, there seems to be no community on YouTube for this game, which having a community on YouTube is essential for any game these days, especially the type of indie game that Forager is. So there's no community on YouTube. There's a lot of shitty little bugs that just could easily be fixed. For example, the 60 Hertz bug I mentioned before, where if your screen's refresh rate is higher or lower than 60 Hertz, that would have to be higher, because I don't think you can get a lower than 60 Hertz refresh rate these days. But if your screen's higher than 60 Hertz, then there's a bug which can just break the game and you can't play it. So luckily for me, on my 144 Hertz screen, I didn't get it, but it's a very common bug. So no YouTubers, shitty bugs that shouldn't be existing are there. There's also no multiplayer update that was promised. Or even, not even just the multiplayer update, but no new content since the nuclear update. Also, the little community that Forager has left kind of hates him, and every time I go on, say, Reddit or whatever, his own subreddit will encourage you to pirate the game. Like, that's how badly Mariono's reputation is in his own community these days. Also, as I said before, the sales for Forager have since dwindled and gone to, I don't want to say exactly nothing, but there's not nearly as many players that are playing the game as there should be. Although, he has sold about like 1 million copies or something, so I guess he got the bag in the end. But yeah, the aftermath of this situation was that there's no community on YouTube for Forager, very important. There's little shitty bugs everywhere that shouldn't be in the game, but still are. There's no multiplayer for Forager or new content since the nuclear update. The little community that he has left hates him, and the sales of his game just aren't what they should be. They're much lower than what they could be. And up until now, I thought I had it all figured out, except there was one piece missing. You see, then I remembered that there's always 2 sides to each story, and so far, we've only really been looking at one. As soon as I heard indie game dev treats employees like shit and pays them like shit, I kind of just brushed it off as, oh, greedy game dev, as really that's become all too common in this industry. And because these are all actions that Mariono has done, I as a human tried to find reason behind them, because as humans, we all do something for a reason even if we don't consciously know it. This is why the severity for a punishment, say murder, is based on your intention behind it, not just the action. And so, a common reason for paying your staff like shit and treating them like shit is because you're greedy, you want more money, that's it. However, if we look at Mariono's actions from a pure standpoint of greed, it just doesn't really make sense. Like, this story is just way too messy and complicated to make sense from a pure standpoint of greed. And that's when I remembered Mariono's story. If you remember back to the first part of the video where I detailed Mariono's come up, or technically the second part, you will remember that he's a very introverted person that has suffered from horrible anxiety. So bad that it caused him to throw up multiple times during events. Now, as someone who has experienced a lot of anxiety and has dealt with a lot of people around me that also deal with anxiety, I've found that anxiety is usually a derivative of some other underlying mental health issue. Or someone with anxiety will usually have another billion other mental issues. And so Mariono is someone with really bad anxiety, potentially other mental health issues, is a massive introvert, and got all of his success from his game at once. Now, if we get all of these 4 things and throw this person, Mariono, to manage a team for a pretty successful video game, I honestly think that this was a recipe for disaster. Mariono himself before has even said that he's not very good at managing teams. That he's not that type of person, which is why throwing someone like Mariono to manage a team it's not good. It will just end in disaster. Now, of course, I don't say this to absolve Mariano at all, because he has been a dickhead to people in the past, and because this is all his fault because he's the one that hired the team. However, I wanted to give this explanation because it honestly would have felt dishonest to end the video on the last segment, because that wasn't really the full story. Sure, we had known all the stuff he had done and everything in the situation, but we didn't know why, up until now. So Mariano, since you've completely wiped your Twitter and other social medias of Forager or anything related to it, I doubt you'll actually do anything further. However, if you want to actually right your wrongs, then I suggest that you either bite the bullet and get a new developer to rewrite the entirety of the code and implement multiplayer, or make Forager 2, again with this rewritten and properly built code that allows multiplayer. But next time, just be careful how you treat people who have made your game the way that it is. Because, as I hope you've learned by now, your actions do have consequences. And looking at the current state of Forager and your reputation too, I think it's safe to say that you've already faced them.